I'm Liz from No Trace. In this video, I'm going to show you how to make a very cute small tote bag. This is a super fun way to put even some of your tiniest scraps to good use, so let's jump in. The finished dimensions on this little scrappy quilt are about 8 inches tall, 9 inches wide, and it has depth of about 2 inches. I'm going to be working with scraps in a few different prints and colors in order to make this bag. I also have 2 pieces of fabric for the liner that are 10 inches by 10 inches. And the straps are 12 inches, so I have 2 12-inch straps, which I'm going to be making out of scraps, but you could also absolutely use some ribbon or webbing for the straps. The first step is to find 2 of your smaller scraps to get started with. I am going to be working with scraps that are squares or rectangles, so they have 4 sides. And the very first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to sew these 2 pieces right sides together with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. At the machine here, I'm just going to go ahead and sew these together. Once the first seam is done, I'm going to open up my 2 itty bitty pieces and I'm just going to press them so that they are laying nice and flat. Next up, I'm going to use my quilting ruler and my rotary cutter to straighten these out so that my piece now looks like this. I'm going to find my next scrap and sew it on to one of the straight edges. And I'm just going to go through that same process of sewing, ironing, and cutting until I have a panel that is 10 inches by 10 inches. I finished quilting 2 of my outside panels, and these are both 10 inches by 10 inches. In the next step, I'm going to sew my outer panels with the right sides together. So I'm going to take a minute and decide what should be the top of my bag and what should be the bottom of my bag, since these are perfect squares. So I'm going to place these now right sides together, and I'm going to add a little no trace tag in between the layers because I like to do that. It's totally optional. I'm going to pin it about 3 inches down on the top right edge. Actually, it's more like 2.5 inches down. So I'll just get that in there and pin that in place. And I'm going to put a few more pins around my bag so that these pieces don't move around on me. I also went ahead and pinned my liner fabric together, and now it's time to sew. I'm starting at the upper right corner of my bag, and I'm just going to go all the way around the 3 sides with a 1/2 inch seam allowance. And I want to make sure to backstitch at the beginning and when I get back around at the end. All right, my outer layers are sewn together and my inner layers are sewn together. Next, I am going to box the bottom corners on each of the layers I have. And the way I'm going to do that is with a ruler. I'm going to place a 1 inch square right on the corner seam. And so the 1 inch is on the seam, not on the edge of the fabric. And then I'm going to trace that 1 inch square with some chalk. I'm going to try not to move my ruler around while I do that. I've got all 4 bottom corners marked on my fabric. Now I'm going to take my scissors and I'm just going to cut out these squares. Sometimes I leave my corners in place, and sometimes I cut them out and add them to my scrap pile. Today I am going to be adding a little to my scrap pile because I've been getting through my scrap pile lately. Now that all of the corners are cut out, I am going to open up the bottom edge where those corners are. And I'm going to line up the seams. And then I'm just going to sew straight across this box corner with a 1/2 inch seam allowance. I'm not even going to pin it, but if you wanted to, if it made you feel more confident, you should pin it. I'm just going to hold it in place and sew. These bottom corners are all sewn up on my inner and my outer layer. Now it's time to make the straps, and I am linking to my tutorial on how to make a strap in any size. I'm going to make straps that are 12 inches long and 1 inch wide. I'm going to use the same steps that are in that tutorial, so check that out if you've never made a strap before. They're super easy to create. My straps are sewn. In the next step, I'm going to turn the inner fabric right side out, and I'm going to place it into the outer fabric. So I'm sliding this sort of bag into this bag. And I want to take a moment and line up the side seams with one another. And I like to start by pinning them at the sides. And then come on around here, line up these seams with each other, and get a pin right here. Then I'm going to take one of my straps and fold it so it's a little curve here. And I'm going to put it pointing down in between two of the layers. And I'm going to pin the end of the strap 2 inches away from this side seam right here. So I have this on my measuring mat so I can easily find 2 inches. So we got 1, 2. It's 2 inches away from this side. Pin that in place. Now I'm coming over to the other end of the strap. Same thing. I'm going to find my side seam and measure over 2 inches. And go ahead and pin this strap in place. Now I'm going to flip my bag over and get the second strap and repeat those same steps on the other side of the bag in between these other 2 layers. Now that the straps are pinned in place, I'm ready to start sewing. And I'm just going to be sewing along this top edge. And I'm going to be sewing a 1/2 inch away from this raw edge. And I want to make sure that I reinforce the straps with extra stitching. So I'm just going to start just before one of the straps near that side seam. And I'm just going to take my time. I want to make sure my straps are nice and straight. I pinned them straight, at least I tried to. Sometimes they shift around a little bit, so you can adjust if you need to. I'm just going to sew over the strap and then back stitch and then sew over it again. All right, I've just sewn over my 4th strap and I'm getting near my starting point. So I'm just going to go a little bit further and then I'm going to stop so that I have an opening of about 3 or 4 inches in the top of my bag. This little mini tote is almost done. It's time to reach into that opening and turn the whole thing right side out. This is also known as the grand reveal. I finished pulling it all right side out and my bag looks like this. And the next step is to push the liner fabric into the outer fabric. And then I'm going to iron all around this top edge of the bag, especially at my opening. And then I'm going to do a top stitch all the way around this top edge with about 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. It's done. It's so cute. It's such a fun size. And if you'd like even more fun scrap busting projects like this one, I'm linking to a playlist right here that is full of other fun projects that will put even your tiniest of scraps to good use. And if you'd like to show some support for my channel, I'd love for you to check out my membership. Just click the join button below this video to learn more.